completely self-taught, I learned many lessons the hard way. So I want to share with you 10 things I wish I knew when learning calligraphy. First of all, what a lot of people don't realize is different styles can require completely different writing utensils. So what you see on screen at the moment is an example of Gothic calligraphy, and what I'm using is a broad nib, a pilot parallel to be precise. This is not what you should be using for copperplate and other cursive styles. You would need pointed pen for those. As you can probably tell, it requires a completely different set of motions because broad nib is based on the angle that you control the writing apparatus at. Meanwhile, pointed pen is all about the pressure that you apply. And so my recommendation is to pick either broad pen or pointed pen and stick with it. Moreover, it's probably easier to learn styles one by one instead of just giving a shot at all of them, because that just might confuse your muscle memory. As a result, it would probably take a whole lot longer to learn something, and in my opinion, once you learn a style, the next style you learn is going to come much faster because now you have some experience in your pocket and also some of that coordination skill already built up. The second thing is to set realistic expectations. Calligraphy is a very definition of doing something very simple extremely well, and the elegance and smoothness you see from calligraphy masters comes from years of dedication. Quite frankly, everyone starts terribly because your handwriting actually doesn't influence your skill at all. Calligraphy is closer to a drawing skill, but the thing is, you are reliant on singular strokes to achieve the result you want, and if you try drawing over, it just looks really ugly. It's going to take a lot of different drafts to get the result you want. It's going to take probably months or years before you churn out something that looks like what you see in pictures. But you know what? I think the fact that it's a skill that compounds over time is what makes calligraphy so charming in my opinion. So if you want a long-term hobby, I think this is it. Hopefully you have a style in mind at this point, so next you need to pick an appropriate pen and suitable ink for you to work with. For me, shopping for inks is one of the hardest parts because there's just quite frankly so many different options. But I think it's incredibly important to note that not all inks are compatible with all pens. So for instance, putting non-water soluble ink like the Orange India ink on screen would completely clog a fountain pen. This brings me straight into my fourth point, which is about doing your research before you make any purchases. Not only do you have to see if the product works for the purpose you want, you also need to check the quality. Quite frankly, I regret purchasing this speedball oblique holder because it does not work well at all. In fact, I'd say it's a waste of money. However, you don't want to get too zealous when purchasing things because these supplies last a very long time. Like for instance, the bottle of black Parker Quink ink I've been using it daily since junior year of high school, so that's what? 3 entire years of use at this point, because now I'm a freshman, rising sophomore in college, and it is still going strong. You're definitely going to grow a collection over time, so you might as well take your time to really research and make sure you love everything. It's also worth mentioning the absurd number of ink stains you're going to get. Like I have a big purple ink stain on the lamp, and I've definitely ruined a couple shirts in the process from just accidentally smudging things everywhere. Sometimes the ink will stay for days. No matter how careful you are, just be prepared. Then when it comes to actually working on a project, ink is there to stay. This means when you're trying to figure out the spacing for something, it's probably going to take a couple tries. Also, you might smudge something, so be prepared to have to run multiple attempts before you get a product you like. As for actually learning how to do calligraphy, there's no use in trying some grand project if you don't understand the basic stroke order. Practice is unfortunately the very core of what makes calligraphy so beautiful, and it's going to take hours and hours, probably many notebooks worth of practice pages before you really understand and get a grasp of the style. But once you learn these foundational building blocks, there's a lot of creative liberty in the way you draw certain things. Like the G I wrote is quite stylized, but it still follows the same stroke order that you'd find on other Gs. Long story short, you need to first learn what the rules are before you can go around messing and breaking them. The ninth thing to note is that calligraphy is not defined by what you use to write, but instead the way you write. For me, I actually spent 2 years of just sketching entirely by pencil before I actually invested in any ink. At least in my opinion, I think that pencil sketches can still be very beautiful, and sketching by pencil also forces you to think more about the proportions and the shape. I would honestly highly recommend just grabbing a pencil, trying to draw whatever calligraphy you like, and see how it goes. If nothing else, it's still fun. Lastly, keep your old pieces somewhere you can revisit. Calligraphy is a skill that compounds over time, so looking over past work is a way to see how much progress you've made. The changes are really hard to notice on a day-by-day basis, but as you train your eye and muscle memory, it adds up to a large difference over time. Ultimately, I think calligraphy is a really underrated skill, and it's never too late to start. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe, and comment what you want to see from me going into the future. Thank you for watching it all the way to the end, and I'll see you next time.